2019 November 29. Daily Bread. Passage. Esther chapter 9 verse 1–19. Keyverse. Verse 1. Title. The Jews triumph over their enemies. Bible passage. On the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, the edict commanded by the king was to be carried out. On this day the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned and the Jews got the upper hand over those who hated them. The Jews assembled in their cities in all the provinces of King Xerxes to attack those determined to destroy them. No one could stand against them, because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them. And all the nobles of the provinces, the satraps, the governors and the king's administrators helped the Jews, because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace, his reputation spread throughout the provinces, and he became more and more powerful. The Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying them, and they did what they pleased to those who hated them. In the citadel of Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. They also killed Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Poratha, Adalia, Aridatha, Parmashta, Arisai, Aridai and Vasatha, the 10 sons of Haman son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. But they did not lay their hands on the plunder. The number of those killed in the citadel of Susa was reported to the king that same day. The king said to Queen Esther, "The Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the citadel of Susa. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? It will also be granted." If it pleases the king, Esther answered, "Give the Jews in Susa permission to carry out this day's edict tomorrow also, and let Haman's 10 sons be impaled on poles." So the king commanded that this be done. An edict was issued in Susa, and they impaled the 10 sons of Haman. The Jews in Susa came together on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they put to death in Susa 300 men, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. Meanwhile, the remainder of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also assembled to protect themselves and get relief from their enemies. They killed 75,000 of them but did not lay their hands on the plunder. This happened on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. The Jews in Susa, however, had assembled on the 13th and 14th, and then on the 15th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. That is why rural Jews, those living in villages, observe the 14th of the month of Adar as a day of joy and feasting, a day for giving presents to each other. Daily Bread Message. 1. The Jews got the upper hand. The king's edict was carried out on the day that was originally appointed to be the day of the annihilation of the Jews. God was with the Jews and they got the upper hand over their enemies and killed many of them all throughout the kingdom. The king's administrators throughout the kingdom helped the Jews. The enemies of the Jews could find no allies because they were afraid of Mordecai. Haman's sons were hanged, but the Jews took no plunder. God gave his people a great victory. 2. Another day of retribution. The king reported the results of the events of the day to Queen Esther, and asked her what else she wanted. She asked for another day of the Jews being allowed to carry out the edict. She also asked that Haman's sons be made an example of and hanged for all to see. King Xerxes granted Esther's petition and the Jews vanquished their enemies. God's salvation was sure and complete. Prayer. Lord, thank you that you are God who rescues your people. Help us to trust in you that you are our sovereign God. One word. God gives his people great victory.